Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Unwatched Pile. Was that too much?
A little bit.
No.
Um, I didn't get the whole countdown music. Did
You
you
know,
not
I, I
include it
was
this time?
I wasn't ready for it. I was rushing at the last minute to get our background up, and
Oh,
this is just how it stumbled into it.
yeah, you did not tell me, so I was just about to get my groove on.
You're
So
picking your
you
nose
killed
and
it.
everything. I know they caught it. They caught it.
Yeah, I was
Um,
just about to get down. But you caught me off guard there. But I do
it's
like
okay.
the background. The background's a nice surprise.
Well, I'm trying to put these in the background every time now. But enough of that. Unwatched Pile number 6. We're here for the Halloween edition. All horror movies tonight. All horror movies tonight. And we of course have to bring in another amazing guest. She's returning. I had to bring her back because this is her field. Celeste de la Cabra. What's up?
Hey. Thanks for the invitation back.
Of
Excited to be
course.
here. I just finished recording like an hour-long video reviewing some Vinegar Syndrome titles, so if my voice is a little hoarse, I apologize.
It's all right. It'll just be scarier. Be like,
Yeah,
I'm gonna talk
that's
about
right.
my movies. Yeah. So yeah,
Very demonic
that's
of you.
great.
This is
Well
very
done.
of the vibe on purpose.
Yeah.
It does fit the very much the vibe of the show for tonight. So it is, I guess, our Halloween centric, horror centric episode because Halloween is what,
A few days away.
2 days away?
Yeah.
3 days away? It is the 29th of October of 2023 for those of you watching this in the future. That's the way time works. Kind of scary. So Stephen and I and our guests, of course, will be doing what we usually do here. We'll be talking about something off our unwatched pile that we picked out. Maybe it's something we've had there for years or for months or for days or for however long. And then we'll pair it up with something else in our collection that goes with it, hopefully. And then give our
Well,
reasons why.
it didn't have to technically go with it. It's got to
Well, if
feel
you're
right
gonna
to
pair
you.
something
Got
like
to
a double
feel right
feature,
to you.
I guess that's true. Though
But
our rules are so loose here, I don't even know them myself.
it's like whose line is it anyway? The points
Yeah,
don't matter. Man. It's like,
we just
Well-
make this up as we go along.
I don't think that there's a rule to double features. It could be a double feature of complete opposites. Like
If
as long
it-
as you can justify some kind of connection or through line,
Yeah.
I think you're good.
that's
Yeah.
it. That's all you need. So before we get into it, Celeste, how's everything going with the channel? You said you just you just recorded a new review. How's everything going over there?
You know, we just put up an interview with Brad Henderson talking about the
Nice.
news with Best Buy. That video has been very successful, so I'm happy about that. I feel like I always say this when I'm on people's channels, but it's always an ebb and flow with me
Oh, of
and
course.
my busyness. And like, I'm pretty open about my struggles with mental health, and that's
Yeah.
been kind of rough as of late. So, you know, I try not to beat myself up about it too much. I would like to be that person who puts up a video on the dot once a week or every single
Yeah.
day or something. I don't know. Until I can quit my job to do this, I don't see that happening. But
Celeste, I'll
I'm
be
with you.
I'll be completely honest with you, and this is something we haven't really shared yet with our audience, but chasing labels will have a change up probably sometime next year. Because I
Mhm.
mean, I don't know about Andrew, but for me, I feel like the schedule of doing a show weekly has started to get to me a little bit. You know what I mean? Like it's not for me mentally. It's starting to not feel like fun anymore. Doing
Yeah.
it exactly the same way. And of course, I got a baby here, and I got all the other things that come with married life and job and stuff. And that's part of it. But it's like I want to make sure that if I'm doing this and doing this with my friends, that it's something that I'm feeling it feels right. And so you
Mhm.
can't force that. You know, you can't
Yeah.
just do it because you think you owe it to your audience. Like it's they're
Mhm.
if they really like what you're doing, they'll hang with you and they'll wait for that next thing that you're ready to do. And I think feel the same way. I hope that whatever chasing labels kind of morphs into maybe in the next year, because we're still thinking about what we want to exactly do on the routine. But it you know, whatever it is, hopefully people will continue to listen to our voices and want to
Uh,
keep
I
chasing stuff with us.
Yeah, exactly. And just to get on, Celeste's point or kind of pick up from that, it's not, getting motivation and energy to do really anything in life is super, super hard,
Exactly.
let alone, something like this. You know what I mean? doing it for so long, like Steven says, it does wear on you a bit. So you find
Mhm.
ways in which to motivate yourself, convince yourself, goof yourself, whatever, to kind of do
But
something.
it needs to be the right motivation. Doesn't need to
Yeah.
be, it can't be something false. It needs to be, for me, it's about, well, I love movies and I want to continue to find ways to stretch myself, but also not where it's becoming a job. Like I want to be able to,
Yeah.
it needs to be more my choice. And
Mm,
when I'm on a schedule where I'm talking about movies and trying to watch movies that I don't necessarily care about, some of them, because some of them
Mhm.
are and end up being not good. And
yeah.
Mhm.
and Andrew knows that better than me because he
Yeah.
watches more of them.
It does. Yeah, it does become job-like, really.
Yeah.
The more you put yourself into it, it does become job-like.
Now
You know,
that
you
was
get
our
you
choice
get a
for our that was
routine
our
and all
choice.
that stuff.
That was our choice. We put that
Right.
upon
True.
ourselves.
Right.
Mhm.
But still, it's like we felt like it was a hole that could be filled for the community if we could help people, understand what they might want to buy.
Mm.
Yeah.
And over time that just got old. But Celeste, I hope that whatever it is that you want to do, you're able to keep doing it, and because I
You
think you
do.
do really great stuff. You do really great
Yes.
Thank
work.
you.
And
Yeah.
you do bring up Vinegar Syndrome, and there will be a whole bunch of their stuff coming within the next several days. Then that
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
literally rushed into my mind as
Yeah.
as you
Mhm.
mentioned that.
Yeah. We're getting a lot of messages here. Real quick, we'll run through them. Got
Hey,
Dustin.
Dustin.
Yeah, good evening. I've come for Andrew and Steven, and I'm staying for Celeste's second to none film analysis, of course. I
Mm.
agree.
Dustin is a
Fan-
great friend and supporter of my ventures, so I really
fan-
appreciate you being here.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. And Josephine's dropping in too. We got some more from Josephine we're going to read off in a little bit. Uh, the maniacal laugh. Yes, that was me. Very John Lithgow. Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. Thank you. That was, I feel that's a compliment. And Steven, I love when you sing on Chasing Labels. I dare you to sing a Halloween song, counting blue cars by, I don't even know what that is that you're talking. Does
My
anybody?
Dishwalla.
What is that?
Remember that song "Counting Blue Cars" from the 2000s, from our
I
younger
don't.
days?
I don't.
I'm
Oh, man,
pretty big music person. I gotta admit, I don't know what that is either.
Yeah.
I've heard the name somewhere,
if you
but
what's
I
crazy is
couldn't tell
if you
you.
play it, I think you'll get it. You know what I mean? It may
Yeah, it
pop
might
into
be
your
one of
head.
those. Yeah.
It was on the rotation back in the day. I may or may not have it on a playlist
Oh
somewhere,
man.
or even in
Well,
my
maybe Andrew can
iTunes.
sing it for you.
No, thank you. I only do that if I get paid. If you're good at something, never do it for free.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll make
The
sure you get
Joker
paid.
said that.
Well, yeah, I know that.
The Joker said that.
But
An admirable role model.
of course he's whatever the Joker says. Everybody's saying hi, Josephine, Dustin to Justin, and they're saying hi to each other. So before we get into our, of course, unwatched piles, our selections for this week, Josephine, speaking of Josephine, she had a list of first-time watches herself that Andrew's going to read off, some
Right.
spooky watches for the season.
I
So
do.
what is that list?
Yeah, first time spooky watches, but the format in which I'm going to do this in will be as if it's an award show. Josie DeMarco has been a fan of ours, and I guess a friend as well. I consider all of our fans also friends. I mean, if they take the time to listen to us talk about
If
nonsense,
she
really,
says my singing's good, that she likes my
she's
singing,
your
then
best friend now.
she's got
Come
she's
on now.
best friend now.
But doing that in that kind of Oscar awards format, it is kind of Oscar season, but it doesn't feel like it because of the strikes and all that stuff. Just a little additive there. But starting off with kind of an eclectic category is the best love story, and that was from the movie Alligator. For those of you who have seen it, it's the movie with Robert Forster, which he's always
Yes.
a delight. That's a great movie. There's a UHD 4K of that from Scream Factory, I believe.
Yes.
Mhm.
Next is best score. Pino Donaggio for The Howling, the Joe Dante film,
Joe Dante Allen.
which is
Okay.
a great werewolf film. If you haven't seen that, if you're looking for a werewolf film, give it a
It
watch.
kicks
It's really
ass.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. Next is best editing for Jacob's Ladder from 1990. Remember that movie? Steven, I
Lot-
know.
I've never seen it.
that thing. Yeah.
Tim Robbins. Yeah.
Yeah.
Next is
It's a psychological horror. It's very much
yes,
A24 would have made it. It's for its
yes,
time. Yeah,
yes. They would, and I think did Imprint just put out a new Blu-ray of that?
they did. Imprint put
Yes.
a Blu-ray out. Yep.
And next is best makeup and hair, and that's for Frankenhooker. Classic. Nice. Best costumes is Mill of the Stone Woman from 1960.
Mm.
If I remember correctly,
That's an Arrow. Yeah,
that's the
Arrow.
Arrow,
an
yeah.
Arrow
Mhm.
release. Best production design, Horror Express from 1972. Movie I haven't seen,
Haven't seen that one.
but it's a cool title. Really cool title. Next is best cinematography for The Others, the 2001 film. It's getting that
Sure, yeah.
Criterion
Cole
release.
Kidman.
And I think Studio Canal's also putting it out in
Yeah,
4K.
I can't wait to grab that one. I love that film a lot.
Yes, I have the old Blu-ray. I'm looking right at it right now. Good Ghost Story for anybody
It is
interested in that.
absent from my collection, so
Oh,
it'd be a good
nice.
hole to fill, to say something not at all inappropriate.
Oh,
I guess.
God, no.
Very true. That Nicole Kidman was and still is quite a stunning actress on screen. Very good too. Next, Best Supporting Actress is a tie between Jessica Lange and Juliette Lewis from Martin Scorsese's Cape Fear from 1991. Great film. Robert De Niro was frightening in that film. We need a new
I've only seen the original, which I love.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's got my boy Robert Mitchum in it, so
Oh, yeah.
it might
And
be hard to
Robert.
top. But if anyone can do it, Papa Marty can do it. So I gotta check that one out.
The Mitch.
It's got a score. I think it's got the score by Bernard Herrmann.
Yes.
Pretty sure he reuses the score. Next is Best Supporting Actor as Clarence Williams III from Tales from the Hood from 1995. And then getting into some others here, Best Adapted Screenplay, The Queen of Spades from 1949, a movie I haven't seen,
Haven't seen that one.
but it sounds interesting. Best Original Screenplay, Trick or Treat, 2007.
Love that movie.
That's got to be
That's just a that's straight.
that's
up
a Halloween staple by now.
And I know they're talking about the sequel now.
How many brownie points do I lose if I confess that I really, really don't like Trick or Treat?
Okay, let's get her out of here.
Yeah,
it's okay.
I almost want to unpack why you don't like it, but I know that's
I'll
probably
tell
the
you.
story.
We don't.
I'll tell you.
Okay, go ahead, real quick.
I just think it's mean-spirited and kind of nasty and not funny. Like, I just think that it thinks it's being funny, but it's just being kind of cruel and crass and like laughing at that. I don't know.
Yeah.
It rubbed me the wrong way, and I didn't get much out of it other than watching Anna Paquin turn into a werewolf, which I definitely felt very neutral about. And then the little guy, Sam, is very cute. But other than that, didn't do it for me, I gotta say.
Okay.
All
right.
Hot take on this Halloween edition, I guess. But next up we have Best Lead Actress, Simone Simon from Cat People from 1942. That's a spooky movie.
Great film.
It's a good one, yeah.
The Val Lewton produced film. Really good. That has a Criterion release on Blu-ray.
That's a low-key lesbian movie, if I'm remembering correctly.
It is very much queer-coded film. It has a sequel, which is also very good.
I haven't seen that, nor have I seen Paul Schrader's remake, but I'd like to.
That's it. Yeah, that's another interesting take on it. Definitely obviously more graphic since it came out in the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But next is Best Lead Actor, Kaji Yakusho from Cure from 1997. Great film. I bought that at the July sale for Criterion. And then, hold on, I went to the wrong one. Okay. And then Best Acting Ensemble for Lake Placid from 1999. Remember that alligator movie?
Was the alligator part
was it a crocodile?
I think it's crocodile. Actually.
Yeah, I think it's crocodile. If it's not Florida, I almost assume that it's crocodile.
It doesn't matter in a movie like this.
Yeah, in the Lake Placid. Then Best Director is Todd Haynes for the movie Poison from 1991. Good film. Really good film.
I haven't seen that one yet, but Safe is a film that really blew me away when I saw that. And I was like, okay, this is one to watch out for. I got to watch his other stuff. Dustin, I'm sorry. Maybe did you do a write-up of it in your book? I'll check out your write-up. Maybe I gotta watch it again. I just remember, I don't know.
Hey, sometimes you watch things at certain times and you're just not in the mood for it. But I mean, sometimes that first impression was the right. I mean,
yeah.
You never know. You might just not like it. There's movies like that.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm comfortable with that opinion, but
of course,
I'd rather like something than not like it. With really anything. So Okay, Dustin, you did. I'll check out the write-up and we'll see.
Okay. Right. So last here is, the grand finale, Best Picture. And this one is kind of near and dear to my heart. I kind of love this. The Faculty from 1998, the Robert Rodriguez, like 1990s teen version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. So underrated, I think.
That was a
Love this
first time
bang.
watch for me last month, and I had a good time with it. It's definitely of its time in its
Oh, yeah.
aesthetics and special effects, but it's just got a stacked cast, and it is a pretty fun meta horror take on Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yeah, I
is
believe.
that one post Scream?
Well, I was going to say, isn't it Kevin
Yeah.
Williamson?
That's right. It's the same writer. Okay.
Yeah, it's the same writer. I mean, it's kind of interesting. You know, teenage kids dealing with
He
weird
was
horror
all about
stuff.
everything Kevin Williamson was writing at that time was all, subversive, like teen stuff. Like even Dawson's Creek. You're talking about teenagers that are talking like adults. Like that are not. Like it's not a lot of the ideas in that show even was kind of different. But yeah, good.
Yeah,
he was
stacked cast for the time. Like Jordana Brewster, Clea Duvall, Josh Hartnett, Salma Hayek. The late Piper Laurie
Elijah
was even
Wood.
in the movie. Elijah Wood, was
Robert
in the
Patrick.
movie.
Did you say
Robert
him?
Patrick
He's in
is
there too. Yeah.
Famke Janssen. This was pre X-Men, and I think this was maybe right around
That's
the
right.
time.
That's right.
Right around the time she was in Rounders, that movie with Ed Norton and Matt Damon. It's got the terrible Russian accent of John Malkovich in that film, which is both hilarious and unique at the same time. Jon Stewart's in the movie. It's what
That's
a weird
right.
time.
He is.
What a weird time.
Yeah.
What a great movie. I've always liked that. That's a movie I would love for a nice boutique deluxe edition to come out.
Sounds like an Arrow.
I think it's a Miramax title.
Yeah,
so
which
it
is
might
always
be
tough.
rough.
That's why the Blu-ray, I'm pretty sure, maybe an Echo Bridge release or something from over a decade
it's like
ago.
them in 20th century are like dead ends at the moment, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's truly unfortunate. I would love to see somebody sell, the rights to that.
I feel like Miramax might be more hopeful in that they're probably trying to scrub that of who as fast as possible, whereas 20th century is just like pure apathy is what's driving that standstill there. Question for you, Andrew. I probably should have asked this at the top, but this award show you've just done, are these your categories that you're assigning, or did Josephine?
No, Josie did that herself.
Kind of do that all. Okay.
She did that herself, and yeah, that's just her personal picks of the movies that she watched during. I guess the month of October, because we're about to wrap up.
Yeah, those are good ones.
Yeah, really awesome first time watches. Really awesome actors and actresses in it, and they all kind of it all kind of feeds into what we're doing here tonight, so it works out.
That's the kind of chill you don't want when you're watching a horror film, huh? Now, who produced that? Because they got a hold of it. If that's a Miramax, then maybe there is hope yet that we can salvage that catalog. I'm not sure.
Are you talking about
the others?
The others.
Dustin saying that Harvey Weinstein was credited on that, so I'm wondering who produced it or who distributed it.
I mean, it's. I think it's always possible that if the company's trying to, if the company's trying to, keep afloat, they might be selling some licensing. Because I don't know what they're really producing right now.
I saw something recently. I forget what it was, but I saw something that they had their hands in, and I was like, "Ooh." Okay.
Do you know what? What they just bought was the rights to the Halloween franchise.
You know what? Maybe that was it. I heard that.
There was just a bidding recently between like A24. There was rumors that A24 was going to buy it, and they wanted to make like a TV series or something, or a streaming series or something. And then Miramax, I guess, outbid them. And I was surprised that Miramax still has money to outbid people. As an entity.
Oh man, what is Josephine trying to do to me? While on the subject of alligators and crocodiles, I dare Steven to sing Crocodile Rock or Never Smile at a Crocodile.
Do you know any of these songs, Steven?
She really wants to hear you sing.
Apparently. Crocodile Rock.
You know what, Steven? That would have been a pretty cool... Remember when we were talking once upon a time about setting up a Patreon? You singing would have been a good tier.
Apparently.
People want it. Gotta give
Chasing
people
Labels compact disc album release.
Well, I've thought about doing like maybe I would take some time. I got to write some songs about movies and stuff and make little jingles about movies. I did it once. I could do it again. I could do a whole album.
Nice.
I'll Taylor Swift this shit. All right. Maybe at the end we'll see. We'll see if I'll
I'll
sing
around, huh?
Stick. Yeah, you gotta stick around. Maybe I'll sing Crocodile Rock at the end. I kind of
That's
know
good
that one.
showmanship.
Yeah,
You gotta
yeah.
keep on watching.
But what's going to keep you watching right now is talking about some horror films. Celeste, you are the guest. Your first time watch. What was it this time around?
Mine comes from this nice budget release of Hammer horror films from Universal. I think that Screen Factory has put these out individually at this point, but I also think that this is still in print, and I think I got this for like fucking $10 or something ridiculous. But it's got a lot of great films on it. The reason I picked the one that I did is because I like to do a little because I watch horror films all year. It's not like I don't know. A lot of people are like, "Ooh, this is my time to watch horror movies." And it's like, well, I always do that. But I wanted to go ahead, or what I like to do is to come up with like a special theme or like an incentive to get me to get through a lot of films in particular. And 2 years ago, I did that with my Universal Monsters set, that big chunky 32 film set. That was a lot of fun. And then the year after that, I kind of did a like 31 horror challenge for my channel to kind of like where we made a video outlining what we wanted to watch. And then at the end, we kind of ranked and reviewed them. This year, I wanted to finally tear through my large amount of Hammer horror films in my collection because they have quite a few budget-friendly collections that have been put out. It's this one and then that Mill Creek box set, which is actually really excellent, by the way. And then I had another like 4 film pack or something like that. And so I was like, well, I'm already doing this. I'll pick one that's coming up. And I'm a little bit behind, so I had to skip ahead a bit. But it's right there. I did The Kiss of the Vampire.
Nice.
Because that felt on brand. I was looking at the ones coming up, and I was like, that one looks like a me type joint. And it wasn't quite as much of that as I was hoping it would be, but it's still fun. It's still a good movie. I think I landed at like a 6 out of 10 on it. Have either of you seen it? Oh, thank you, Josephine. That's really sweet of you.
Oh, it's getting so warm and fuzzy on this show. Stop complimenting us, Josephine. God, let us focus.
Never turn down a compliment.
I'm just kidding.
Come on, Steven.
I'm not good with compliments.
Steven must be so used to getting them, I guess.
I'm not good with compliments.
Save some for the rest of us, please.
But no, unfortunately, I haven't checked out Kiss of the Vampire yet. You said 1963. That's the year.
I don't think I said actually, but it's something like that. Yeah, because I was at the early 60s because I did it chronologically and I had to skip ahead a few years, but 60 something. Yeah, early.
Could you give us a little bit of a synopsis? What was it
about? So it's about this newlywed couple that is kind of traversing through Europe as they are wont to do, and they get lost and kind of stop at this inn. And then the neighboring castle hosts a family or a coven of like vampires or whatever. And they get sort of invited to this dinner party. I don't want to spoil anything, but it's also like, we know where this is going. You know, it's kind of like, it shouldn't be much of a surprise, the things that happen in this film, but it's sort of that sort of deal. I don't know. It's just, I've been thinking a lot about how expectations play into our viewing experiences, and how a lot of the times when we don't like something, it's actually just a mismatch of expectations and not necessarily that the film has failed at anything.
Yeah.
So I've been thinking about that a lot, and I'm wondering if this is actually a fault of the film or if it's just not what I wanted. But like,
well, I mean, look, as film, as through time and history, we become more educated. If we're dedicated to something, we all become more educated. When it comes to art, we've got so much downloaded to our brains now as film fans that it's hard not to go into something and wipe the slate clean. It's hard to be objective. I think everything can be reinterpreted with time once you've seen something, like what you were talking about with Trick or Treat. You saw it the first time with expectations, with things in your mind that you've maybe seen before, and you saw it a certain way and you didn't like it. But you could go back and with a fresh, now that you've seen it, go back and look at the movie differently and pay attention to other things, and your mind could be totally different, could be the same. I
think it's so difficult to remove expectations and like kind of your own baggage when going into a film for the first time, that I think a second viewing is always, I mean, of course, we don't all have unlimited time. I wish we did,
Of
but
course.
like a second viewing, I think will always either one, allow you to see it on its terms as opposed to yours and kind of appreciate it for that. Or now that you've kind of adjusted your expectations, you can kind of more accurately critique the things about it that you don't think work because they're not just disappointing you.
Yeah.
But for this one in particular, I don't know. A lot of these vampire films, or just in general, like these sort of satanic cult type beats that I tend to enjoy and like a lot. I think it's only recently, relatively speaking, that you kind of get films that subvert the traditional narrative surrounding these things. The Witch being the most prominent and I think the most cathartic example of this. But especially with these like early 60s Hammer films like fucking what's it called? The Devil Rides Out is another one that just kind of bummed me out by the end, where it just, or like The Omen 3, a lot of these types of films where it's not clear to me if it was the artist's intent to do this or if it's like a studio note that's like, come on, man, we got to smuggle into like Christian messaging or like make sure that it's not too offensive by the end of it, you know? So that is always kind of like, okay. I mean, to be fair, the way that this happens in this film in particular, like the last scene is probably the best one. There's a lot of bat gore going on and it's pretty intense and fun to watch. But here's the thing, and I don't know, maybe this is a problem with me and not a problem with the film, but the head vampire who's like seducing these people, he's not sexy. These vampires aren't sexy, and vampires should be sexy. That's my hot take.
Not a
for the
genre
night.
line.
That's
Film.
like
It's not a genre line vampire.
I was just gonna say this seems similar to like a genre line film, but thing is with his films is they're all so atmospheric. Like the fog machine seems to be dialed up to 11 in his films, and they talk about like sexiness. Like he's really provocatoring you as a viewer to really kind of get those things. I mean, obviously later on in his career, he would literally make adult films. So obviously he's still playing around with pushing those envelopes within the Hammer horror. You know, not even Hammer horror, just kind of horror in general. Steven, what was the Fantastique? That's what it was. The Fantastique, which was kind of like a French supernatural horror vibe in it. Check out Kat Ellinger's documentary she did on it. It kind of explains everything, not only about him, but kind of about that subgenre in and of itself.
It's on the Arrow player,
which is kind of like it goes hand in hand with Hammer horror. You know what I mean? Because they're both kind of trying to push the envelope when it comes to what you know what you can do with the horror genre on screen. Hammer horror is interesting because there's some great Hammer horror, but then there's kind of like lesser stuff.
Sure.
Like
at least
they're
trying to swing for the fences at sometimes, and other times they're playing it safe. You know,
or try to capitalize on something like vampirism and sexiness of vampirism, but also blood. You know.
I gotta say, like, I think it is important to keep this in the context of when it came out, because I think that Hammer is always, I think at a certain point, once they realize what was making the money, they're always like pushing the envelope as far as they can in the context of what they could get away with. But this one did kind of feel like it was pulling its punches, not necessarily on the violence front, because I think there was quite a bit of blood in this one. If I'm remembering correctly, I don't know. I've been binging these things and I might be getting them confused a little bit, but I think it does pull its punches a bit in terms of the obvious sexual subtext going on here, because vampires are pretty inherently like sexual entity and mythos and cultural artifact, I guess. So maybe that's where I was kind of disappointed, is it like it felt like it was walking right up to the line and not really going there when it maybe I wanted it to, but maybe that's not their fault, you know. Well, Josephine, I have seen The Velvet Vampire. That one rips. I've not seen Vampire Circus, but I need to check that out. And Steven, I think I interrupted you. I apologize.
No, you're okay. No, I was just gonna say that's just how it is sometimes. You know, like I said before, you know, the expectations. I think it's okay to have some expectations. I don't think you should go in trying to guess the movie or anything like that. You shouldn't have it already planned out in your mind, but you know, you hope to see certain things from certain genres, and that's okay. And like you said, you readjust if you're willing to give it a second try and see what happens. But that's the fun part about movies and why we own physical media, because we can always go back to it if we want to.
That's accurate.
So before we move on, here's something directed at Andrew here. Not the last week's episode, Shakes and News, but the one before that. I loved when Andrew was describing this comedy that wasn't good, and Steven said, "It's a bomedy."
I remember that. I thought that was funny too.
I don't even remember saying that, but thanks.
The thing is, I don't even know which comedy I was talking about. I watched so many.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
goodness.
cool.
That makes me want to go back to my letterbox and look and see what the heck I was talking about.
Well,
but I won't do that now.
we
Not
won't
the
do
show
that
for
now.
it. Not the
Yeah,
show for it.
Show must go
Get
on.
me away.
Andrew, please describe your first time watch for us.
Okay, so my first time watch is something that's been sitting on my shelf for a couple of years now. No big surprise there because that's kind of what happens all the time with me. I've got things sitting on my shelf from over a decade ago that I haven't seen yet. But this is a movie that has a bit of a reputation. And I guess that's kind of why, I've been putting it off a little bit. You get a little intimidated when it comes to films that have reputations. And this is the Swedish silent film called Haxan, or I believe the Danish pronunciation is Hexen. And this is a silent film from 1922, directed by Benjamin Christensen. And this is a film, obviously, you can tell by the packaging and all that kind of stuff, put out by the Criterion Collection a few years ago on Blu-ray. I think they put it out earlier, maybe on DVD, maybe even earlier. I'm not quite sure. Should have done that research before we went live, but didn't do it. And this film is such an interesting film because it's not a narrative with a plot with a concrete plot or 3-act structure or really anything like that. It's a bit of it's a documentary with some narrative parts, some performance parts in the film, but it's split up in 7 parts, and it's kind of examining the relatively loose history of things like magic and witchcraft and supernatural things and like demon worshiping and Satanism and all these kind of mystical things that have been kind of a part of human culture for centuries. And the first part of the film really goes back to like ancient times and discusses like the first the things like paganism and stuff like that, and worshiping of deities, but also worshiping of demonic deities and things like that. Of course, it skews a lot more Christian as the centuries go on, because as the Middle Ages would approach, and you have kind of the Inquisitions, and you've got people like hunting witches and things of that nature. It gets into all of that stuff, basically kind of going from ancient times to the Middle Ages, where a lot of those things were happening. Of course, here in the United States, we had the Salem witch trials in Salem, Massachusetts. You can go to Salem today and go on tours of certain historical sites, and people will inform you of all the things that happened, several centuries ago. I want to say in the 1600s is predominantly when those events occurred. And the film also examines the idea that it probably was not witchcraft at the time. The last part of this, or last 2 parts of it, kind of examines that perhaps what was going on was a form of hysteria or a form of mental illness that obviously primitive people at the time didn't understand how to interpret it. I mean, we're only kind of understanding how to interpret certain mental illnesses now, and it's the 21st century. We're still dealing with how to deal with that, let alone centuries ago. Our idea of kind of modern day psychiatry and modern day psychology is only about a century old, really. If you think of people like Freud and all of those were only really at the turn of the century to an extent. And so the film really delves into all of those things. But what makes this movie so damn cool, so damn unique, is the way in which these sequences are portrayed. You get amazing makeup work and set design and just incredible atmospheres that you can do within silent film, because it's all visual. Silent movies are all visual, and you get certain. Obviously, you can see on the front here. Look at that demonic present, this devil thing in here, and the way in which all of these things are constructed are so incredible for the time that you're watching this. I believe the production of this film went from 1919 to about 1921. So obviously, you're dealing with special effects that were probably light years ahead of their time, and which the time it was made. No green screen or CGI back then. Everything had to be practical, so you had to be really detail oriented and stuff like that. And the film doesn't hold back when it comes to depicting things like torture and just the incessant brainwashing to convince people that they're witches when in fact they probably were not witches. They were just people with mental illnesses. And it kind of shows that exploitation of that fear mongering and all of those things. Really an amazing movie. Clocks in about 105 minutes. This edition is really, really cool. It's got an introduction by the director himself that he did like 20 years after the movie came out, or so. So that's really interesting. It's got some audio commentaries on here as well. Really cool movie. Really cool. If you're into silent film, into horror silent films, if you're kind of wondering what people thought of when it came to witchcraft and paganism and all of those things about a century ago, because this movie is about 100 years old. This is really cool. I highly recommend checking this out.
Awesome. Sounds cool, man. Josephine's got some trivia for your movie. Haxon Films, the creators of the movie The Blair Witch Project, took that for their name for the production. Yeah.
Well, Hexon actually means the witch or the witches or something like that. That's what it translates to into English. So that's very appropriate that they would take that.
Awesome. Well,
so real quick, there is a review from me of this film on my channel from a now defunct segment, but Haxon is one of my all-time favorite films, like top 100 level stuff for me. It's probably my favorite silent film. I was just absolutely blown away by it when I saw it. Like, it's like part documentary, part essay film, part like, and then like little narrative vignettes inside, and it's like incredibly progressive for the time. In its politics and in its social commentary. Like, it's a fucking like banger straight up. Like, I love that film so much, and the imagery is just astounding. One of my phone backgrounds, or because it goes through, and like it's on my iPad too, is an image from that film, because there's a great supplement on it where it kind of gives you like citations or sources for all the different artwork that's featured throughout the film, and I was like, that one, I want that one, and I like looked it up, and now it's that. But
yeah,
I adore that film.
It almost feels college level lectionary at times, where it's like a lecturing and kind of like a study on the history of witchcraft and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's such an amalgamation of different genres, as well as Celeste was saying. That's what made it so unique, and also so captivating. The imagery in the movie is haunting. And you can tell at times it's making fun of the absurdism of extreme conservative Christianity and how it was just out to get people just because it was too afraid to think of anything else that wasn't Christian. You know what I mean? Like there's a whole thing that can go on how the tirade of the negative aspects of Christianity on the history of humanity, and this film is probably part of that lecture. And this film really much points that out, where it's like, yeah, they would just torture the hell out of people, and they murdered like millions of people over a long period of time just because they were different. And it's people with probably mental illnesses, but also people probably not mentally ill, people who were just different. People who were perhaps had different disabilities, deformalities or stuff like that were born genetically like that. And they would be like, oh yeah, that person's a witch, kill them. You know what I mean? It's the absurdity and the stupidity of humanity throughout its history that people tend to ignore. But I'm glad that this kind of points that out.
Yeah, I think these witchcraft films always kind of strike a chord with me and always resonate with me, because the way things are going, it doesn't necessarily feel like a product of the past anymore. Like, it feels like we're regressing and marching towards like religious fundamentalism and this kind of witch hunt type thinking. Especially as a queer person, like it's not great lately, and these films are just really cathartic and just also aesthetically on point for me. So It's
Yeah.
hard to mess up a witchcraft film for me, I think.
Sadly, history is very cyclical, and it's
hmm
coming back around now.
hmm
Again, like, it just keeps going in a circle and a circle. When it
Yeah.
comes to our culture and society, we tend to never learn from the past at
Yeah, it's
all.
unfortunate.
Yeah, I know.
I talked about it in my review for the Devonsville Terror when Vinegar Syndrome put that out, which is another witchcraft film. And it was just shocking to me how like lines of dialogue from that film felt like they were lifted directly from the headlines today. And I was like, man, this came out like 50 years ago and it's talking about ideas from like 500 years ago. Like, this is depressing.
Well, it's part of the problem is same people in charge of our country or probably were born back then, and we're probably in office then, and they're still in office. Like the same people that they just are in control or are like
Yeah, and
50, 60, 70 years old.
I talk about this all the time. There's a lot of oppression of the freedom of thought and the freedom of thinking because they kind of don't want society to progress in any way.
Yeah.
When it comes to idea, not even like witchcraft and stuff like that, but just like Celeste was saying, the bigger picture things,
Yeah.
things that are affecting our society. There's such a fear, that same fear that they were, showing, centuries ago when it came to witchcraft, is the same fear that they have now in many different aspects of our society today, and it keeps regressing, like you said, a state of arrested development. That's what I always call it.
Yeah. Josephine's trying to ruin your double feature. Did she ruin it? Is it you pairing it with the Crucible?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I would agree with that pick. The Crucible is one of my picks for like the most underrated films ever made. Like, I adore that film so much, and it kind of gets slighted as like one of Daniel Day-Lewis's like lesser works, or like just kind of a histrionic, like not very good movie. But I don't know, I find it to be very powerful and again very prescient and of the moment every time I see it. And it's based off of a great play too.
Oh yeah.
I remember the play, and I know that they've done a few movie adaptations of it.
Yeah. Also, Dustin says, Celeste, can't wait to hear your thoughts on the new VS release, Mark of the Devil. A lot of the same themes of religious and hypocrisy. Found it very provocative.
Hell yeah. When they announced that, I was like, this is exactly my shit. I can't wait to watch it. And I got it in the mail yesterday, so I'm excited.
Nice. All
Hey, Tim, what's up?
Another one of your regulars, Tim. All right.
I watched his video.
Did we lose Celeste?
He's very busy,
but
I enjoy his content, and he's a chill dude. He had some pretty scathing things to say in a live stream yesterday that made me laugh a lot. So
nice.
I'll leave it at that.
All right. Well, I will go ahead and head over to mine. So I was thinking about what I wanted to watch, and looking at some of my favorite horror movies that I tend to watch every year. One of my favorites is The Fly. I'm a big Cronenberg fan. And I have, of course, this great set from Shout Factory, Scream Factory, the Fly collection that has every Fly film, including the original back from 1958. And then it's a couple sequels. We have The Return of the Fly and The Curse of the Fly. And a little connection to your film, Celeste. It was directed by a man named Don Sharp, who also directed Curse of the Fly. So little connection there. But of course, my film that I'm doing a first time watch for is a sequel to Cronenberg's Fly. So I'm watching my pick is Fly 2 that stars Eric Stoltz as he is the son of Goldblum from the first Fly film. And so in this film, so we know from, spoiler, any spoilers for The Fly, if you haven't seen The Fly yet, which are crazy if you haven't, we find out Gina Davis is pregnant in that film. So she has a fly baby in her side. And so, the movie ends the way it ends. And so this film basically kind of picks up after that. And she's having the baby. And then when the baby's born, it's like a larva. And they're like, what the hell? And then they open it up and a baby's inside. So a human looking baby's inside, or like shit. So the whole movie follows the progression of this child, and he grows very fast because of his genetics. He's growing at a rapid pace, and he's already, it shows him very quickly become basically an adult, a mature adult, played by Eric Stoltz. and he's also got a vast intelligence through his genetics from his father, and of course, I guess whatever physical, he has extra physical abilities as well because he's got fly in him. I don't really understand that whole thing. Out of all the insects that you say can give you extra strength, a fly, it doesn't come to mind. Because as a fly, he doesn't really have strength, whatever. But so yeah, the thing about this film is it very much follows the same formula as the original Fly. When he finally figures out, he finds out about his past and his father and what happened to him. He then goes on this journey of trying to figure out how to, because he's basically kept in a government lab, and they want to figure out how to redo this transporting machine that Jeff Goldblum made. So he's helping them figure that out. At the same time, he's finding out about his past and stuff like that. And so he goes through some of the same trials as his father did. And then there's a little bit of difference. Of course, I don't want to give away the whole plot, but then the end of this movie, I think the way they kind of up this movie is they kind of make it like the Alien versus Aliens. They up the action. The action at the end of this film is like way more than the Fly. Than the Fly, you have like one scene of transformation, and then he kills a dude. He almost kills a dude, and then that's it. There's not a lot of action in the Fly. In this movie, it becomes a whole like government facility gets attacked by the Fly. Eric Stoltz, and it's pretty fun. It's a fun, corny horror movie, but of course not nearly on the level as the Fly. It doesn't have the acting going on. It doesn't have the story, the character interplay that's as interesting as the themes that are being presented in the Fly. At least as good, because Cronenberg's just so good at presenting. People like to call him the body horror guy, but really, he finds a way to talk about our psychology through our bodies, and he does that so well. And I don't think that that's conveyed as well in this. I think we're a little bit caught up in the coolness of the effects and all that stuff. And it's really just kind of leaning on the Fly, the original film, a lot for anybody to want to pay attention to this. So it's not terrible, but it's also just kind of straightforward. No real surprises. It's an okay film. It's an okay. Fly 2 is okay. Anybody else seen it?
I watched it this morning because
okay.
You when I saw you guys' picks, I was like, okay, I've seen Haxan and I love Haxan. And then you said you're doing The Fly too, and I was like, as it so happens, that is also in my unwatched pile. So maybe I could have a 2-for-1 kind of deal. And this morning, I asked both of my partners if they wanted to watch it, and they both love the original Fly, as do I. And so I was like, all right, let's do it. And we watched it, and I gotta say, I wasn't expecting to say this, but I fucking loved it. I thought it was great. Like, I thought it was genuinely great. And I mean, it's not as good as the original. I don't think.
Of course.
There's
my expectations. Yeah. I was like, yeah.
But like, and maybe this is part of this new exercise where I'm trying to check which parts of my disappointment come from my pre-assigned expectations and which parts are coming from the actual content of the film.
Yeah.
But even with those expectations going in, I think that while it's not as good, I would put it, and like I do need to rewatch the original because I think I might have underrated it the first time I saw it. I would put it in like the same kind of tier. Like I think that it is a worthy sequel for sure. Like I think it retains a lot of the interesting kind of political ideas of the first one, and I think it retains a lot of the pathos of it as well. Like you do have this kind of romance and some how do I say this without spoiling both films? It doesn't have quite the tragedy of the first one, but there's still some pretty sad parts in this film, especially as it relates to a dog. And like the effects are fucking nasty. Like they're so good. I think it's grosser than the original film. Like they said, like they took the challenge and went for it. I think the performances are really good, and I don't know. There's I think conspiracy theorists might get a lot out of this film, but like that's not where I'm coming from with it. But I think in like a post 9/11 America, like there's some interesting themes here as it relates to like the surveillance state. And like there's a really interesting line early in the film where he gets his own pad and the guy's like, look, no more no, you get your own privacy. There's no more watching eyes. There's no more this and that. And I was kind of like, wow, what a fun thing to say pre 9/11, because nobody
Yeah.
is afforded that luxury, you know. And so I think it has definitely some interesting ideas as it relates to like corporate control over human beings and things like that. And I think it's just also really gripping and entertaining. So I wasn't expecting to do like a full-throated defense of The Fly 2 today, but I thought it was great.
Look,
So
the things you're saying very much are making me think about the movie more. So, when next time I watch it, I'll keep that stuff in mind, because I'll get around to it again, because I love the first one so much. I'll want to watch the first one, then it'll be in my mind next time. I'll be like, you know what, let's just pick up The Fly 2 again. Let's see if we feel differently. But but it's watchable enough that it didn't turn me away. Like, I'm not turned away from it. Like, I'm not like, I'll never watch that again.
Also, Christopher Young from Hellraiser fame does a great score for it.
Oh, okay. I didn't notice that. Yeah, that's cool. Awesome. Well, that's my pick. Now I'm interested to see the pairings here. So Celeste, the Kiss of the Vampire, 1963. You did not care for it. So what did you pair with?
Well, I would say I still liked it. I was just kind of hoping to really like it. It's like a 6 out of 10 for me. Like, yeah, it's good. You know, it's just lacking in some elements for me. Real quick though, Andrew, have you seen The Fly 2? I'm curious what you think of it.
I have not seen The Fly 2, unfortunately. But we talked a little bit about it, not it, but just the concept of sequels to very, I guess you could say, beloved, famous,
please don't go into it, because if you guess my pick,
I'm not gonna mention any, but I'm just saying that
I'm gonna kill you.
It's kind of odd that was kind of a thing. Like, you have this big hit, or maybe a movie that is famous, beloved, whatever, a big hit at the time, and they made a sequel to it, and the sequel's kind of forgotten. Granted, that kind of happens now a bit, but it just seems like, because you always hear of Cronenberg's The Fly, but no one talks about The Fly 2. I mean,
it's got Eric Stoltz in it, who
Stoltz
almost was in Back to the Future.
Yeah, Eric Stoltz is that almost actor. Like, he was kind of the Josh Hartnett of the 1980s, in a way, because Josh Hartnett famously was up for like every major role in the last in the 2000s. Like, he was up for like Batman, he was up for all kinds of stuff, and he just didn't want to do it.
He did Pearl Harbor with Michael Bay.
He wasn't that as well. That was a big movie at the time.
When I was watching it, I was like, he looks vaguely familiar. And I pulled up his letterbox. And I was like, well, I've seen like 10 of these movies, but I don't necessarily recognize him from any of them. So he is kind of that almost actor, huh?
Yeah, he makes that appearance in Pulp Fiction. He's like, it's just like, if he would have been in Back to the Future, it would be a different.
Talk about Eric Stoltz. Yeah. Eric Stoltz. Yeah, they famously shot like a good a couple of scenes in that movie that you can see. It's a special feature on the Blu-ray or the 4K of Back to the Future, where you can see the scene shot with Eric Stoltz, and it's a different vibe than you get with
what character was he supposed to?
Okay, Marty McFly.
Yeah, not Marty McFly, but
I'm
Michael
blanking. It's Michael J. Fox. Okay,
yeah,
because I actually thought
Marty McFly,
a lot like him. Like, when I was watching, I was like, is that Michael J. Fox? He looks a lot like him, but it's not. So anyway, not to derail this whole thing yet again.
No.
But as I was watching it, because with this premise in mind, I immediately, and I outsourced this as well, just in case my partners had any better ideas. But I was like, okay, what's a good double feature for this? And as the plot unfolded, it became very obvious to me what the best double feature pick would be. And I have it right here. This 4K from Blue Underground of Daughters of Darkness. It's a great film. It's one that I love a lot, but the plots are not identical, but very similar, where you have this kind of straight couple who have just kind of eloped or become wedded, as it were, and are kind of traversing through Europe, and then make an incorrect stop on their journey or an unexpected stop on their journey, and are then kind of seduced by this kind of third presence of a vampire. So you kind of have that exact same premise set up, but I think Daughters of Darkness takes it a lot further, takes it to the places I wish Kiss of the Vampire went. And it also, you kind of have like a masculine and feminine energies kind of contrasting between these two films, because Kiss of the Vampire, it's like very much a patriarch of this, coven of vampires that is seducing these people, whereas in Daughters of Darkness, it's Elizabeth Bathory, who has just kind of lived through the ages, and is this kind of like sexy, like maternal figure to kind of like bring these people in, and she kind of seduces the woman, especially, which is an element that is a little bit different, but also kind of similar. If you've seen both films, but this one is just, it's one that I think if you watch them together, like you'll watch Kiss of the Vampire, and I think you'll see these ideas introduced, and then Daughters of Darkness, I think, kind of essentially it walked so Daughters of Darkness could run, to use the parlance of our times.
Okay.
Like, I think that Daughters of Darkness just takes this kind of premise and gets edgier with it, gets like more sexual with it, and is also just more beautiful. It's more artsy, a lot more colorful, and this Blue Underground 4K looks astonishing, as they all have. Every single Blue Underground 4K I've seen is like a perfect 10 out of 10 in its video presentation. So yeah, I think that would be a good one.
So
I don't know if either of you have seen it.
No, I have. Unfortunately, I haven't seen it. Would you say that Kiss of the Vampire is the first feature in your double feature, or should it be the second
I'd say
one?
so. It'd be chronological, and it would also be like the kind of elemental thematic one-upping to kind of build upon each other, you know?
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah, Andrew, have you seen it?
I have not seen it, but I've seen that 4K on
Definitely
so many
seen it, yeah.
websites.
Yeah.
And I've always wanted to get it, but the Blue Underground 4Ks are very expensive, but they are very much worth it because they look
This has
they look
the
amazing.
chunky lenticular slip on it. They have
Yeah.
like,
it
it's a
looks
very
amazing.
thick edition. They do chunky sets here. I think the slip is out of print, but it was on Orbit recently on the used section for like $30. So if it's still there, maybe Andrew is covertly checking
I
as
know
we
I gotta
speak,
go.
but
Now I gotta
maybe it
go
should
there.
be.
Damn it! Don't give me more ideas. Yeah, it's always something I wanted to check out. Because I remember when
Well,
that came out. It came out in the last several
it
years.
was
I
recent
think.
because I bought it like after it came out. Yeah. If you don't need the slip on it, I think Blue Underground has been participating in quite a few sales recently, and like $25-ish, 24, something like that has been the price point. Yeah. So might be one to seek out. Yeah, I'm a big fan.
Awesome. Andrew, all right. Surprise us. It's not the Crucible, apparently. So
it is not the Crucible. There was a more obvious pick I was going to go with, but I decided to go with the less obvious pick. I don't know why.
Flubber.
No, it would be a hell of a thing. I mean, Hocus Pocus was an option, mind you, dealing with witchcraft and stuff. But I decided to go with something. I think maybe cinephiles know of, but this is Ingmar Bergman's The Magician. And I don't know, for some reason this popped in my head. The more obvious pick I was going to go with was The Witch, with the Robert Eggers film. I felt like that film lines up perfectly with Hexen. Like literally to a T. I mean, it's a movie dealing with it's a movie you can't really explain to people. It's dealing with witchcraft in colonial or pre-colonial times, really. So it very much meshes itself with what the director was talking about in Hexen. But The Magician is also dealing with this idea of magic and the supernatural, the mystery behind it, but also the fear behind it as well. Because the premise of this film, it takes place much later than the Middle Ages, much later in kind of much later than the Inquisitions and all this other kind of persecutions and stuff like that. This takes place, I believe, in the 1840s. In Sweden, stars the great Max von Sydow, who was in a bunch of Bergman films. Ingmar Bergman to me is such a unique individual director. There's nothing quite like a Bergman film. I think I've said this on the podcast a bunch of times. I fell down a rabbit hole of Bergman several years ago, and it's kind of like taking an hallucinogenic drug, and just like it opens the doors of perception. If I can use a little like kind of a literary comparison here, and you're experiencing things you never knew existed, and that's Bergman, really. But The Magician stars, like I said, Max von Sydow, and he's part of this traveling troupe of kind of performers, really, kind of a vaudevillian troupe of performers, but they perform like magical illusion or an illusionary type stuff that is deemed unnatural by like local authorities and officials and stuff. So they basically they end up going into this merchant's house, and they're going to and this merchant, as well as a bunch of the local officials in the small village, they are going to inspect their performance to see whether it's deemed worthy or safe to perform to the masses, to the local people. And the movie's kind of all of this deconstruction of, the mysteries behind what's going on with them. Is it real? Is it magical? Is it appropriate? Is it not appropriate? What's the whole thing behind it? The kind of deconstruction of these supernatural tricks that they're playing. What is all behind it? And the movie does get into that, but of course with Bergman, it's about so much more, because Bergman is so dense. He's, dealing with this kind of um, you know, who has the right to really deem what is appropriate to the masses and what is not. Similar to what Celeste and I were talking about earlier, in like the oppression of society, the oppression of thought, the oppression of expression. Like, what is that? Who has the authority to do that? Who gives these people that authority? It's dealing with all of these deeper, meaningful things, but it's a great atmospheric, slow burn of a movie, like a lot of Bergman stuff is. Um, when it comes to someone like Bergman, I wouldn't say dive into this one right away. I say go with his earlier stuff, Summer Interludes, Summer with Monica, and kind of work your way to The Magician. It's not Persona or some of his other more grandiose films that'll just knock you out, but it's not one to start off right away. It's kind of an intermediate, like right in the middle. Like you work your way to it, and then you graduate to like the Personas of the world.
It's like Wild Strawberries area.
Yeah, like wild strawberries, or something like that, or all. I'm blanking on the
Seven
Bergman
Seal,
films now.
Seven Seal.
Seven Seal is kind of a more graduate level stuff, I would say. I mean, 'cause that's dealing with the grandest theme of all time, life and death. Just that small little one that really has no bearing on our lives. But this one's dealing with more
Fluff.
lesser themes, I would say. Some Bergman can be so dense, like Winter Light or stuff like that. But this one is really, really good. It's mixing kind of psychological with horror. But I really love it. I really love it. There's this edition from Criterion, or you can buy, or it comes in the gigantic Bergman cinema set, which I do have, and I did do it on like a review of that on the YouTube channel several years ago when I got it. So that's lurking on here somewhere. Search for it if you want a more in-depth look of that. I was gonna bring it out, but it's on top of a shelf, very heavy, very big. Would be really hard to fit in the frame. It really is. It really is. So luckily, I'm one of those people who bought all of the Bergman before that set came out. So I have like double Bergman on most movies.
Double Bergman cheeseburger.
Yeah, and that's like I can't get rid of them. It's like
the Art House Burger House.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
You've convinced Dustin. Dustin wants to. He didn't even realize they were in his Unwatched Pile.
The Fellini falafel. I'm sorry. No,
we got to open a restaurant. We got to open a restaurant.
I know, making me hungry.
Oh yes, yeah. Darvin. Hi, thank you for being here. Darvin is a good friend and supporter of the channel. So I'm happy to see her here. And Dustin, I'm shocked you haven't seen Hexen. I think you would love it. But of course, we all have our blind spots. So
of course,
I'm just excited for you to experience it. I've not seen The Magician. I'm very, very behind on my Bergman watching. I started with The Seventh Seal, and then I watched Persona. So I guess I dove right in. But both of them are two of the best films I've ever seen. So it's just a matter of when, not if.
Talk about pushing the envelope. Persona,
yeah,
like blows up the envelope and just assaults your mind in all kinds.
Entirely
of ways.
Unconcerned with the envelope entirely.
Yeah. Yeah, I got really excited when that set first came out, and I got it. I was like, I'm gonna fucking watch this shit. And then I watched like one disc, and I was like, I gotta slow down. I was like sweating. I was
maybe
like,
not a binge-worthy endeavor. I don't know.
It's not really a Netflix binge. It's
but what's weird is you say that, yet that's what happened to me. Is once I got into it, and once you like put your mind into the Bergman mode, and you just kind of run with it. and then once you come out of the cloud of Bergman, it's tough to get back in. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's just one of those directors. It's one of those directors where it just kind of captivates you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
most definitely. I like it. That's an interesting artsy double feature there, along with like a more sleazy double feature by Celeste.
But we're all about parody here and all
Yeah,
about
yeah.
diversity.
I'm going to go the more. This is a good trio of double features because mine's like kind of more like the mainstreamy, the more accessible one.
Yeah.
Because the Fly 2 is a little more accessible. I think it's easy for people to. You can pop it in. It's pretty easy for people to want to get into. And the movie I'm double featuring it with, I feel is a pretty recent film. Because my thought process, of course, a lot of times I'm thinking about themes. I like to do that when I'm coming out with double features, is do a thematic through line. But in this case, because I wasn't like as enthused, or maybe I didn't connect with this movie on the first watch as well, I didn't connect with themes like Celeste did. I didn't have something to jump onto that way. So my mind went to like, okay, sequels to really great first movies that are in the horror genre that maybe did it better on this, or did a great job of making a sequel to another great horror movie, original horror movie, and one that came to mind was one that took a long time to get a sequel, and that is The Shining with Dr. Sleep. Of course, starring Ewan McGregor. And, of course, this is a sequel to a really great horror film. And honestly, I thought Dr. Sleep did a really good job of paying homage to that first film, but also, really taking it further and, and delving into more of the backgrounds of the characters. And I love some of the choices that Mike Flanagan made with this film. And so, yeah, I thought this was, I saw this in theaters with my wife. We both loved it. She really loves this movie. I'm surprised because it is long. And my wife isn't good with long movies. And it's like almost a 3-hour movie, I think. There's two different cuts, actually. The director's cut's even longer. It's like this director's cut's like 30 minutes longer. So I don't even think I've watched the director's cut yet. But if you don't know anything about this film, of course, it picks up many years later where Danny Torrance is now grown up and he's still dealing with the shine that he has, which allows him to have these kind of abilities to connect with people beyond the grave. And then we get introduced to a new character, this young girl who also has the shine. And people like them are being hunted by, I'm trying to think of the actress's name. You know offhand, Andrew?
Rebecca Ferguson.
Rebecca Ferguson plays this character who essentially is a vampire herself, sucking the kind of life force out of people like her. And it just makes her basically have immortality. She keeps living longer and longer as her and her gang of people keep, sucking the life out of others. And so it finally makes its way around to The Shining more and more as you go further into the movie, but because you go back to the house and everything like that. But it's very much a movie about, I feel like a lot of it's about repression, a lot of about, not wanting to deal with who you are, your past. And that's what Danny has to do in this movie, is kind of confront his past. And what I love a lot about the choices that were made in this movie is when we do look back to like scenes of the original film, he decides to reshoot them and then like not like try to like deep fake some guy and make him look like Jack Nicholson. He uses another actor. And like it kind of deals that right there. I thought the choice is great because it's like that's how Danny saw it. Now we're seeing it from Danny's point of view, and that's how he remembers it. And we know how memory can be unreliable and things can be unreliable. And I think that's the other thing is dealing with memory and things like that. It's a very interesting sequel. And I go back to, I've watched it a couple times. And I think it's a really good job he did. Mike Flanagan's become the Stephen King machine with everything he's doing on Netflix and stuff like that. But anybody else here seen Dr. Sleep?
That one is on my unwatched pile
Ah,
as of now. I remember when the book came out, my brother is a Stephen King fanatic, and this was at the peak of his interest. And so I pre-ordered the hardcover and got it for him.
nice.
And I found a used copy of that for a pretty good price. So it's been sitting in my 4K section and just haven't watched it yet. But yeah, I've heard nothing but good things about it, which is, I mean, I guess it is based on Stephen King's own sequel to his own book, but like the idea of doing a sequel to The Shining is so like monumental a task, just
Well,
that's one of, you know.
well, and the interesting thing is that for people that are fans of the film, of course, the studio's like, okay, we want to make a sequel to the movie, but
Yeah.
Stephen King, who doesn't love The Shining,
Yeah.
you're like, hey, we want to take your book that's not, like we want to make a sequel to The Shining, but we want to take your book that, it was a weird place, but he found a way, I think, to compromise and like pay homage to the movie, but also pay respect to the book that King.
As someone who has both read Dr. Sleep and seen the movie, Mike Flanagan was able to kind of mesh the book and the movies together, specifically in relation to the Stanley Kubrick film The Shining. He was able to kind of mesh those two worlds together very, very well. Dr. Sleep I think it's still relatively underrated. I know when it came out, there was a lot of positive buzz on it. I saw it in the theater. Steven saw it in the theater. Many people did, but it's still like underperformed when it came to box office and stuff like that. Hence why I think Mike Flanagan's career kind of shifted towards doing the Netflix thing. That's why we got like Haunting of Hill House, Haunting of Bly Manor, and we've got his other work there. His newest one,
Follow the House of Usher.
Follow the House of Usher, and I always forget the third one, which was really, really good. Midnight Mass. I think that was the third one, which people tend to actually think is the best one. I've seen many people have that take on it and have that argument. But Dr. Sleep is really, really good. Rebecca Ferguson in that film is so evil, yet so attractive at the same time. And it makes you watch the film in like, I can't root for this person, but I kind of want to. But the acting is fantastic in it. The themes are really good. Ewan McGregor is very good in the film as well, and it, like I said, it meshes the book world and the movie worlds together very, very well. I haven't seen the director's cut either, but I heard it's even better and obviously longer. But yeah, Mike Flanagan's work, it's really, really good. Those miniseries on Netflix. I know Netflix has a bit of a, reputation, positive, negative, whatever, but that work is really good. He just signed like a big, big deal to go work over at Amazon like last year, I think. So he's going to be doing more work there. I think he's maybe doing the adaptation of the Dark Tower series for
Amazon.
That's
what I heard. Yeah.
That's something he wants to tackle. Don't watch that movie that came out a few years ago.
That movie's terrible.
That movie's not good. I'm reading the Dark Tower books now. There is no way you can squish those 7 books into a 2-hour movie. That's like goddamn impossible. It's got to be a mini series. It's got to be a series, really. Yeah. Because Stephen King's work is so dense in the sense like his world building. It takes up a lot of pages of his books. Like he spends a lot of time world building with histories and characters and pasts and stuff like that, and just setting you up really, and then the plots kind of take over. But yeah, Dr. Sleep is great. Not to go on too much of a rant, but I'm diving.
Thanks for supporting me.
I'm diving back into Stephen King. That's why I've got a lot to say.
Awesome. Well, yeah, like I said, I didn't have I don't know. I mean, maybe there's a connection there. Maybe the repression, there's repression in Fly 2. Was there any repression in Fly 2?
Well, it is dealing with.
There's a transformation.
Well, not but a sins of the father.
True.
He spends an amount of the film like resisting his fate and like kind of attempting to repress that part of himself. So
there was more of a connection than I thought. Ah, damn. It's that subconscious movie guy thing in the back there. I love doing this show. I love this show. All right. Well, Celeste, love the picks. Thank you once
Thank you.
again for your presence here. We always love having you. And please tell everybody where they should go to find you talking about film.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me again. Thank you for letting me be on this most prestigious Halloween edition. I noticed that it's episode number 6, which is my favorite number as it so happens. So that's fun. Sorry, there's something in my eye. But to find me, you can just search my name, Celeste de la Cabra, here on YouTube. And if I've done something right, that should show up. I'm also on Patreon. If you want to support me monetarily, that would be greatly appreciated. I don't have to tell you guys how much work goes into this stuff, but it really is a tremendous amount of work that is guided really entirely by passion. But having the Patreon supporters really does help a lot. It helps me stay motivated. It helps me put more of my own resources into this stuff. So yes, shout out to all my patrons. And I'm also on Letterboxd, letterboxd.com/inhumanecstasy. You can find me on Instagram and on TikTok at Celeste de la Cabra. I think that's it. I think that's all my plugs.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Celeste. Of course, you know where we are. We're here on the YouTube channel. Of course, we also have the Chasing Labels podcast at all the places you find your podcasts at. And as I promised at the end, I remember when rock was young. Me and Susie had so much fun, holding hands and skin and stone. Okay, that's it. That's all you get. We'll get another verse another day.
Josephine said she was going to bed. I hope she stuck around long enough.
If she did, she'll see it on the replay.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I hope so.
Yeah, check out her channel as well. She does lists of which, like I just read off earlier in the show.
I didn't know she had a channel. I will absolutely be checking that out like right now.
All right, guys. Well, everybody, thanks for coming in, watching us. And hey, guys, stop watching us. Go to your piles and watch some stuff. Like, what are you doing here? See ya.